First real threat to Google, how to keep your small business safe from hacking, and on Investment School tonight, the dangers of keeping your money in cash. All of that to come, but first, the very latest Eyewitness News.
Good evening, I'm Maki Malapo. Police remain on the hunt for Laiki Tsepo Molefe and Tapelo Molefe, the nephew and son of murder accused Katiso KT Molefe. The pair is wanted in connection with a scheme which saw Transnet award a tender to a company accused of massive price inflation. The issue was flagged by Vereniging-based company Q-Tech. Shortly after that, Q-Tech employee Armand Swart was killed in April last year. Now it's emerged that members of the Molefe family have been involved in acts of defeating the ends of justice in relation to the arrest of Laiki and Tapelo. In a voice note played before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry today, Katiso Molefe's girlfriend Fundiswa can be heard instructing Laiki Molefe's sister to tell him to lay low as police were after him. According to Witness B, the investigating officer in the Armand Swart case who has been testifying before the commission, Laiki is referred to as Tsepo by his family.
Lebo, can you please tell Tsepo that he needs to stay far away from Soweto and he must not come to work until further notice. He must not be found anywhere and his phones must remain switched off. Everything to do with him must not be found until further notice.
Fundiswa goes on to advise how Laiki can prevent getting caught by police.
He must remove the tracker from the RS4 because they want it. If he wants to go to the mall, he needs to wear a cap or put on some kind of headgear or spectacles. When Tsepo wants to get drunk, tell him that I said he must please buy a bottle and drink at home. Please, until further notice.
In the National Assembly, former Police Minister Bheki Cele's first day of evidence has seen him implicate Minister Senzo Mchunu in a conspiracy to have him arrested for corruption. He's also implicated Mchunu and Vusmusi Ket Matlala in a conspiracy to have Crime Intelligence head Dumsani Kumalo arrested. Cele has also disagreed with Mchunu's decision to disband the Political Killings Task Team, saying Mchunu should have informed the Interministerial Task Team and National Commissioner Fani Masemola. Babalo Ndenze has more.
Bheki Cele made his first appearance before the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee investigating allegations of corruption made by KZN Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Cele didn't take much time to dismiss some of the claims made by his successor Senzo Mchunu during his testimony, including his reasons to disband the Political Killings Task Team. He also says Vusumuzi Ket Matlala informed him that Mchunu was behind an attempt to have him arrested for a tender more than 15 years ago.
Matlala tells me that Mchunu is preparing to arrest me for having got in the corruption of the 2010 tender. Here is an evidence.
He told evidence leader Advocate Norman Arendse that Mchunu is best placed to respond to why he wanted him arrested.
Why would Minister Mchunu want you to be arrested?
You can answer that best.
Cele says Matlala also informed him that he was using the police's procurement processes to help fund Mchunu's ANC political campaign. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi says his department is auditing all contracts it has with the Independent Development Trust following the scandal around an oxygen supply tender for state hospitals. Having since entrusted the Development Bank of South Africa to take over the project, Motsoaledi says it's still to be determined how many hospitals can be supplied with the 836 million rand donation from the Global Fund. In August, the IDT's CEO, Tebogo Malaka, was suspended following evidence of corruption in the tender and attempts to bribe a journalist. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
Answering questions in the National Assembly on Wednesday, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi said health officials had provided incorrect information that the oxygen supply tender had ballooned from 250 million rand to more than 800 million rand because of corrupt tender processes. He said a desktop study had determined that 30 small hospitals could be serviced with the Global Fund's 250 million rand donation. But following the submission of a second successful bid by the department, the Global Fund has since provided more money for the project. Motsoaledi says the DBSA is now determining by testing the market exactly how many hospitals can be supplied with the available funds, including maintenance.
We will have to issue a contract for whoever must maintain, because there's no point inputting oxygen plants that will work for only 3 years and thereafter they are not there.
Since the release of a forensic investigation into the IDT's management of the tender, he's requested that Health Department officials also be probed to ensure there's been no malfeasance on their part. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And a French court has ruled that oil and gas giant Total Energies has engaged in misleading commercial practices. In 2021, the company launched an ad campaign depicting mostly wind and solar farms and claiming it could become carbon neutral by 2050. According to the court, Total Energies overstated its climate pledges. The court has ordered the company to pay more than $9,000 in reparations to each of the 3 NGOs that brought the case. Total must now remove all statements regarding carbon neutrality from its website and post a link to the legal action in a month or face penalties. Gold's trading at $4,147.66 an ounce. The rand's at 17.32 to the dollar, at 23.08 to the pound, at 20.11 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $65.74 a barrel.
In your sport, Hugo Broos says he will consider naturalized players for Bafana Bafana selection ahead of the FIFA World Cup. Simon Harmer's Stars as South Africa beat Pakistan to draw their test series. An NBA coach and player arrested in illegal gambling probes.
A look at your weather. Clear sunny skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 11 degrees and peak at highs of 30. Pretoria is at 12 and 31. Vereeniging at 10, also reaching highs of 31 degrees. A partly cloudy start for the mother city. Otherwise, it's clear skies along with fresh southerly winds in Cape Town at a low of 14 and a high of 24 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Police remain on the hunt for Lakitshepo Molefe and Tapelo Molefe, the nephew and son of murder-accused Katiso KT Molefe.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Sunwood Park, Boksburg, there's bumper traffic. This is due to roadworks on the N17 eastbound between Rondebolt and Carnival City, while in Calvin Alex heading towards Germiston. There's still those roadworks also causing heavy delays on the N3 southbound between the Between Interchange and London Road. In the mother city, there's still slow-moving traffic. That's heading into the Cape Town CBD on the elevated freeway. Also, look out for slow-moving traffic. This is on Nelson Mandela Boulevard approaching Browning Road. You can also expect delays on the M3 southbound. This is heading towards Newlands Avenue. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025. Good evening, I'm Stephen Grootes, 8 minutes after 6 the time. Well, very good results coming out of Clicks today. They had a big rise in profit. Their dividend is up quite strongly as well. This really takes us to a question around store loyalty. Their loyalty card system, the Clicks card, seems to be doing very well. There's been a big change coming at their competitor. And I'm very interested in how much loyalty works for you. We spoke about eBucks yesterday. You may remember Wendy Nola had a few choice comments to make about that system. There have been big changes announced sort of mid-cycle. I know some people, I've made this point before, I know some people who are sort of experts on the loyalty card system. But do you belong to a loyalty scheme and does it work? I'm afraid I live in a family divided. There's a holdout, I'll let you guess who it is, who doesn't really do that stuff. And there are other people in my family who are very efficient and very clever and therefore do benefit from them. I do wonder if you are using that system as well, and if you are using the kind of loyalty cards. And can I ask also why you use one and not the other? Is it because it's simple? Is it because the benefits are so good? Is it because there's a cappuccino at the end of it? Not a cappuccino fan myself, but I get the point. 011 8830702 021 446 0567, and of course voice notes on 072 702 1702. I know the big attraction of loyalty cards is not just money. It's that you can actually do things with them that you would not be able to do otherwise. And that really does get people involved and interested in them. So that might well be the big attraction for you. So really keen to hear from you on what the big attraction is. We'll hear from Bettina Engelbrecht, the Click CEO, in just a moment. Looking forward to that conversation. It's been fascinating watching what's been happening on international markets today as gold seems to have recovered, platinum surging again, and then oil in particular was up $5. At one point yesterday, this time was around just over $60, went up past $65 today, simply because the Trump administration imposed new sanctions, easy to get those muddled up, imposed sanctions on Russian oil that would have an impact on whether India would take that oil, and that led to a much higher oil price, and that, of course, then came very nicely for Sasol. Their share price was up 17% at one day, a very strong day for them. But we'll talk more about that. The Oasis Group, they've been talking about their big results. We'll speak to Ibrahim, I should say, rather. And then the big change, and I wonder if you've noticed this as well, in how your browser works. Used to be, if you were searching for The Money Show, you would end up on The Money Show's webpage. Now, you probably get an AI result. And I think that process is only going to sort of go a lot further because ChatGPT has launched their own browser. It's called ChatGPT Atlas. Essentially, every result you get from that will be the result of an AI bot. So it's not just a search, it's actually an AI result. And I think that is going to have some interesting implications too. There is a whole body of the internet. So think, for example, news websites. Obviously, that would be my interest. But also think, for example, other websites with other knowledge, how to change a bicycle wheel or something. All of those results suddenly aren't as valuable as they used to be because the AI result is what you get first. It's the perils of having your business dependent on another business model. And the Google business model has been in a particular way. Now suddenly the whole model may be changing because of ChatGPT, and the result of that is that your business will suffer. Well, I'll be very interested to see how that's panning out for you. Glad you're with us. Good evening. It's 12 after 6.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
Well, the pharmacy and retail group Clicks reporting today its diluted headline earnings per share up by over 14% for the year to the end of August. Group turnover up 5.3%. The group is also reporting growth of over 10% in private label and exclusive brands. As a result, it's hiked its dividend by 14%. The CEO at Clicks is Bettina Engelbrecht. Bettina, good evening. Good to talk to you again. You're reporting strong results here. Where's this growth coming from? What's driving it?
Well, thank you, first of all, very, very much. You'd have seen it was a soft sales in terms of the top line. And so we did the kind of thing that we are known for, focus and look at the things that you're able to control. You therefore would have seen good income growth, great margin expansion, which is always, very positive, and really extracting every single ounce of efficiency that we could. And that's what led us to a really very decent bottom line result of dividend increasing by 14.2%. And then, of course, diluted headline earnings per share up 14.1%.
Have you been making some tweaks to the sort of back end to your supply chains, things like that? Are your trucks suddenly a bit more efficient?
Trucks are more efficient, first of all, because we've invested in solar. And that has been phenomenal, specifically for the UPD brand. You do like 30+ billion rand of transporting goods across South Africa through the UPD network. And so every little bit of cent that you can eke out of there, ultimately goes down to the bottom line. You look at the UPD result, cost growth of only 1.9%. That's the reason why this year I thought, of course, we've got a resilient business model. Of course, we've got market-leading shares in defensive retail categories. But really, the key to our success this year was our people, because they really focused on the things that we could control or the things that we could influence that would make a positive impact on our bottom line results.
Your retail costs are up 7.9%, and that is above inflation. Is part of that because of what your people are costing you? Quite legitimately?
Well, partly you've got to look at the results, bearing in mind that although we opened 62 new pharmacies in this year, most of that came in the second half of the year, and in fact, close to half, 29 of those came in July and August months. So what you've got is you've got the costs, because obviously you've got to prepare for that. You've got to employ the people. You've got to train the people. You've got to get the stock in there. You're paying rent, but very little of that turnover would be really flattering the top line result. And so I think you've just got to bear that in mind when you're looking at the results itself.
Club card sales account for nearly 82% of your sales, and that's a huge percentage. I mean, clearly there's a sense of loyalty from your customers that must be making a difference. I mean, that 82% of your sales through Club Card, that's massive.
That is incredible, I must say. You know, people were sharing with us, because we celebrated 30 years of the Club Card this year. They were sharing like incredible stories of, you know, when I was a young person, the first time I got my Club Card, I'm still a Club Card member. In fact, there are people that wrote to us that became Club Card members when we launched the program in 1995. That's an incredible story of loyalty. We are the most widely used loyalty program in South Africa. And when you've got the kind of loyal Club Card customer base that we have, that augurs very well for your continued growth. In the first couple of weeks in this year, that figure's actually increased to beyond 82%. So much for us to look forward to. And the most important thing that we look at always is what's the Club Card contribution in pharmacy. And in pharmacy, actually 87.4% of our sales came from Club Card customers.
Your main competitor, I won't mention them by name because I didn't mention you when I spoke to them, but they've also upgraded their loyalty program. They've made a big song and dance about it. They're making big promises with their program. Do you think they're trying to catch up? I mean, do you think they could one day even overtake you? I mean, they clearly they've clearly seen what it's done for you.
Yes, I mean, I think that's, you know, when you are first, and you're successful, I think you should expect that people are going to try and emulate. And so I view that as flattery, you know, that people say, we talk about, hopefully it's not imitation, but really they're trying to emulate what we've done. Where you've got first mover advantage, Stephen, you can't stand still. We've made many adjustments to the Club Card loyalty program over the 30 years, and we will continue to do so. You look at the affinity program, for example, that we've got, very, very difficult to duplicate because we've always looked at market leaders in their respective fields. So you're thinking about an NGen, you're thinking about F&B and their eBucks program as an example. So we've tried to always ensure that the affinity partners not only speak to the wants and needs of the Club Card customer, but are a fit strategically and in terms of eminence with our brand, which of course is a fantastic brand as well.
You're opening new stores, new pharmacies during the current financial year. You opened during the financial year we've been talking about. Are there particular areas you're targeting, Bettina? And I find this interesting because I presume they're urban areas. I presume it's, you know, you go where the people are. But decisions that you make about where your new branches will be will tell us quite a lot about where there is room for economic growth.
Well, yes, I mean, you know, there are so many areas which are very densely populated where, you know, we are still underrepresented. We were talking earlier today about areas like in the Western Cape, Khayelitsha, around Alex up in Johannesburg. So first of all, just in densely populated areas, we still have incredible opportunity. What we are constrained with there is that we don't have large shopping malls. So we are beginning to think very, very differently about what is it that we have to do to grow our presence in those highly densely populated areas. And then, of course, it's about how do you go further than where you are. So rural nodes, as an example, would be another one of those areas. You know, there aren't competitors in those areas, and we've got the opportunity to really cement loyalty to our brand by going in there first.
Bettina Engelbrecht, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it. The CEO at Click, strong results from them. They do, as you know, have a competitor as well. Your thoughts on your experience in the pharmacy business. Whenever you go in, what do you find? What for you makes a loyalty card system work? 011 883 0702 021 446 0567 and voice notes on 072 702 1702.
702.
702.
Stephen is on X.
At Stephen Grootes.
Well, the last 2 days seeing gold and platinum both losing significant value. Suddenly today, platinum surging. At one point, it was up by, I think, 6%. And it seems that a particular announcement in China might have been the reason for it. It seems that there was a VAT exemption which is going to expire for platinum. And that has meant that people are trying to get platinum into China by the end of the month. Peter Majors, Director of Mining at Modern Corporate Solutions. Peter, good evening. Platinum rising slowly over the last few months. It dips and then it surges. It's a reminder of what can happen in commodity markets.
Oh boy, Steve, you think you understand something and then bingo, you realize you don't have a clue. And platinum was one of the deadest metals for the last 10 years. You know, it just couldn't crack 1,000 an ounce. It wouldn't go too far down, you know, maybe to 900. But it was like taking a pulse on a guy in a coma. For 10 years, it just went up a little bit and it'd go down, up. And then literally 3 months ago, somebody just woke up and said, hey, gold's pushing 4,000 and platinum's not even 1,000 an ounce. You know, is gold really worth 4 times as much? And bingo, a rocket sled took off. Platinum went from $950 to $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500. So yeah, I think it hit $1,600 an ounce from less than 1,000 in probably 3 months maximum. And then palladium did the same thing. Oh, geez, if platinum's going to go up, I think I better add $500 an ounce. And even rhodium. So I can't explain it. I did read that story about the VAT. I think it was on Bloomberg's as well. But the fact is, platinum's been running, all of the PHM's been running strong, and they've really pulled the industry out of the muck just these last 3 months.
So they've done that, and yet I think for a lot of people in the industry, probably still a little bit too soon to see if there's going to be more investment. I know there are 1 or 2 projects that had already been announced. Some people are sort of predicting that there will be a platinum deficit for quite some time. I think all of that must be true. Still a difficult moment to invest in platinum.
Yeah, it really is. And all the majors, Northam, Impala, and I can't call it Amplats anymore, Volterra, they were all at pains at the Indaba 2 weeks ago, the Johannesburg Indaba, which is really the South African mining Indaba. And it's really good. All 3 of them were at pains to explain why prices have gone up. They just said, well, you know, it did fall too hard, and there is constrained supply. We're producing the same amount we did 15, 20 years ago, and there's no expansions online worth mentioning overall, you know, in industry-wise. But, yeah, none of them could pinpoint why we had this little 50% increase in the PGM prices. But, boy, were they happy about it, and they were all praying it would stay. But people are reluctant to invest in expansions, let alone new mines. All those Southern Platinum, Roger Baxter is all smiles there. They've raised $20 million, and that's pretty good for a brand new company.
And here we are, still not knowing what's going to happen next, because this caught us all by such surprise. And the sort of big variable still is what's actually going to happen in the car industry. And we thought for a while it was going to go to electric cars very quickly. Turns out maybe not so fast.
I think that's the answer in most of these technology changes, Steve, is the advances in technology happen very quickly and they get all the headlines. But to change this great big ship, this great big oil tanker, it is more gradual. And we saw a lot of government subsidies and pushes the last 5-6 years towards electric. And boy, electric did make big inroads. But for all of them pushing, all you need is one person like Trump to say, I don't believe any of it and I'm not going to back any of it. And it's caused a lot of the other countries to say, maybe we did go too hard, too fast. Although I just returned from China, and from what I thought, they're convinced electric's the future, and they don't mind pushing and continuing. They're not going to change. So it just means the whole world's not going to change quite as quick as it would. But I think that direction is positive. That direction will continue. But yeah, we're going to have internal combustion engines and hybrids, and maybe even internal combustions, but with something clean like hydrogen. So it's going to be a mix. It's not going to be this relentless shift into electrics, and the rest just falls by the wayside.
Peter Major, thanks very much indeed. Director of Mining at Modern Corporate Solutions.
Stephen Grootes
Taking your calls
on 011-883-0702.
G10, you're in Ridgeway, that's south of Joburg. Your loyalty story, you're with eBucks. You used to be with eBucks, rather.
Yes, Stephen, I used to be with eBucks since I left university and started working. And now I'm with Investec.
And why did you change? Why did you give up on eBucks?
So before COVID, eBucks was amazing, and I used to hit the really high tiers of the eBucks program, which is level 4 and level 5, quite easily. I did milk the system. I did follow the rules, and I made sure that I, did everything I could. But after COVID, with the complications of eBucks, it became really difficult to even hit level 3. And then that's why I changed to Investec.
Was it important for you to get to sort of the top level or near it? I mean, I think there's an aspiration, there's a real sense of victory if you do that. Was that important to you?
Yes, it was. Because you get more rands back for the higher tiers. And I think the second thing is I used to travel a lot. And I must say that even though I moved to Investec and now I use the SAA lounge, for me, the slow lounge, nothing beats the slow lounge. And that's one thing that I do miss about F&B is the massages, the quality of the liquor, the quality of the food and variety at the airport, at the lounge. So I think the only thing I miss about banking with F&B and eBucks is the lounge.
G10, thanks very much indeed. Calling from Ridgeway, south of Josie. I know so many people who you just sort of bump into again and again in airport lounges. A lot of business gets done in some of them. All right, why have you stayed with the loyalty program? Why have you given one up? G10, thank you. 27 after 6.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Graham Kerner is at the Kerner Perspective. Graham, good evening. Really strong results from Clicks.
Yeah, good evening, Stephen. I think Bettina pointed it out. To generate 14% headline earnings growth and a 14% increase in dividends, or 5.3% in revenue, that tells you this is a great quality business. And just another number, return on equity at 49%. So spectacular. I think, though, the one thing that did strike me, and I think Bettina actually said it, they really are squeezing, and you've got to squeeze to convert 5.3% revenue into 14% earnings and dividend growth. So I think they are supremely good at what they do. But you could see today, I think the share price declining after really solid results tells you that the markets may be saying, this is a competitive space, and maybe they've really done as much as they could with what they have. So really credible result, but a very difficult industry, I think, and a very competitive one.
You would have heard our conversation around platinum a moment ago. I mean, who could have seen the last few days coming?
Yeah, so I thought it was just me that didn't know what was going on, but Peter Major seems to concede it as well. So, but I think, Stephen, a while ago, I started getting a little bit more optimistic on platinum, and I think we've got to, frame that and say generally we're a little anxious of the single commodity, and of course the PGMs are a whole basket of metals, but generally we would classify them as a single commodity producer, and we're always a little bit wary of those guys because as you've seen, they can, as Peter was saying, platinum did nothing for a decade. In fact, 2013 it was $1,500 an ounce, and here we are, kind of back there, we're just above that. So, but having said that, I think what I started getting a little bit more optimistic about was the fact that you saw all the major producers, I'm talking platinum specifically, Impalas, Northams, Amplats, all shutting shafts. So there was kind of this expectation or belief that demand would continue to erode, possibly on the conversion to EVs. And you just got the feeling that the market was possibly going to be caught flat-footed, because once capacity comes off, 200,000 ounces here and 100 there, it doesn't get brought back very, very quickly. So I think that's where my view is slightly different to maybe what Peter had. I think some of this was just, the fact that the metals could move into deficit quite quickly, and that's exactly what we've seen. And then suddenly, these prices can pop. So yeah, we're a lot more optimistic on the PGMs, but particularly platinum right now.
Sasol up, was it 17% on the day? Nice coincidence for them. Their sort of third quarter business metrics out on the same day as the oil price went up $5.
Yeah, but I think, Stephen, if you look at where, the last time Sasol was, say, at 110 almost, the oil price, I think, would have been quite a bit higher. So I think that's almost secondary. It helped, obviously. But I think it's the market really rewarding them for what was really very, very good results across the board. The work that they've done in the destoning plant, for example, that filtered through, to not only to mining, but to Secunda, Natref, Sasolburg also trading well. So yeah, a really solid result. No sort of disruptions because of outages this time around. The only real let's call it problem area would be chemicals, and that's mainly because of chemical prices. If you look in the US, seem to do quite well. So yeah, I think the point is that there's a lot of value in Sasol. It's just the market needs to see a roadmap to how that value will get unlocked, and I think maybe that's what captured the market's imagination today. Also, maybe a little bit of short covering. You don't see a share price pop 17% just on fundamentals. So I think there might be some technical stuff around that as well.
Graham Kerner, thanks very much indeed at the Kerner Perspective. Just after 6:30. Marky, good evening again. The latest on a city manager for Joburg. Back to the Future?
Well, Stephen, all I know is a selection panel established to find a new city manager for Johannesburg has recommended the reappointment of Floyd Brink. Good evening. Out of 10 shortlisted candidates interviewed for the role, Brink emerged as the panel's top choice. He has, however, been removed from the position twice in the past 2 years following court rulings that both his 2023 appointment and his subsequent reappointment were unlawful. With the panel's latest recommendation, Brink is expected to be reappointed as city manager for a third time today. Alpha Ramushana has more.
The Johannesburg City Council is meeting today to debate and consider the selection panel's recommendations to reappoint Floyd Brink as the city manager. But the council is divided, with the ANC-led coalition expected to support Brink's return, while the DA and other opposition parties are firmly against it. Some opposition parties argue that Brink is not the most suitable candidate for the role and allege that he is aligned with the ANC. The selection panel has recommended that Brink be appointed on a fixed-term performance-based contract effective from the 1st of November. Council members are set to vote on the selection panel's recommendations this afternoon. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
The Tshwane municipality wants to decrease its reliance on water tankers, but issues of aging infrastructure continue to persist. The municipality held a media briefing today to dispute a recent News 24 article which stated it spent 777 million rand on water tankers in the previous financial year. The municipality says the figure represents procurement activity and not actual spend, as it also accounts for historical debt and unpaid invoices. Tabiso Goba has more.
The Tshwane municipality says its water tanker usage is consistent with the water outages in the city. As the outages increase, the municipality is forced to deploy water tankers to the affected areas. Tshwane City Manager Johan Metzler says aging infrastructure and vandalism are some of the main root causes for the outages.
The main causes were the bulk supply interruptions from Rand Water. Also, of course, the contamination of the Apis River and the Hammanskraal supply area. There's also the aging distribution network, which we are working on, but there's only about 20% of the funding that is required per year, so that then creates a growing backlog.
The Tshwane municipality says, like most municipalities across the country, its infrastructure budget is far below its infrastructure needs. Tabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
In the Western Cape, Wynberg police are calling on the public for help in bringing 4 wanted criminals to justice. Earlier this week, 6 inmates escaped police custody at the Wynberg Magistrates Court. A manhunt was immediately launched and 2 of the 6 were caught on the same day of their escape. The details of how they managed to escape are still under investigation. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg urges the public to remain vigilant.
The suspects between the ages of 22 and 33 appeared in court on charges of illegal possession of firearms, housebreaking and a warrant of arrest. They were all remanded in custody after their court appearances. They are Linda Soyeza, Mpumeleli Lufuta, Ismail George and Tofik Damu.
And Ukraine's president has urged the European Union to back a plan to release billions of euros in frozen Russian cash to help fund the country's defense. European ministers held talks today about how billions of euros worth of frozen Russian cash could be made available to Ukraine as a so-called reparations loan. As EU leaders met in Brussels, Volodymyr Zelensky said he hoped they would make a positive decision about using 140 billion euros in Russian assets currently held in the Belgian clearing house. The controversial move would be on top of sanctions the bloc has imposed on Russia, the latest today targeting the Kremlin's oil revenues. They followed U.S. measures against Russia's oil industry earlier, the first time President Donald Trump has sanctioned Moscow as he grows frustrated over President Vladimir Putin's refusal to end the war. Yesterday evening, the U.S. president confirmed that a planned meeting with Putin in Budapest had been shelved indefinitely. A look at your weather. A sunny Friday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 10 and 12 degrees and peak at alternating highs of 30 and 31 degrees. A partly cloudy start for Cape Town. Otherwise, it's clear skies along with fresh southerly winds at a low of 14 and a high of 24 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. A selection panel established to find a new city manager for Johannesburg has recommended the reappointment of Floyd Brink.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in Sunwood Park, Boksburg, we still have those roadworks slowing down traffic. N17 eastbound, that's between Rondebold and Carnival City. However, the rest of Gauteng looking pretty good, and no serious accidents or major delays have been reported. However, in the mother city, traffic remains congested. This is heading into the CBD on the elevated freeway. Also delays, this is on Nelson Mandela Boulevard, approaching Browning Road, while you can also expect some delays M3 southbound between Newlands and Kenilworth. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Enjoy the thrill of the Soccer Panthers Challenge Weekend Edition, an all-new platform from Hollywood Bets. You stand a chance to win a share of the 5 million rand jackpot when you bet 5 rand or more on selected EPL matches over the weekend and correctly predict 10 out of 10 winning margins. Or chase the share of the 50,000 rand leaderboard prize. Entry is free. Let this soccer season bring sizzling success. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is licensed by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Joburg businesses, this is it. The Prime Media Prime Impact Sales Event is here, 3 to 7 November.
Register now and get a free demo commercial revealed live at the event, a tailored campaign for your business, and access to exclusive annual partnerships.
Prime Media is SA's leading media company with the audience reach and products to grow your brand.
Seats are nearly gone. Register today at primeimpact.co.za.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
Well, we're talking about loyalty, not the kind you don't see at a commission of inquiry, but the kind that makes you stay with a particular company or leave a particular company.
This is Vicky here. I am loving my SASO rewards program. I've been driving a diesel car for almost 2 years, and in all this time, I've never had to use my money to buy AdBlue. I always use my points. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Very effective. Clearly working for her. I'm not sure which loyalty campaign is working for you and which is not. A card does help, I know. I sometimes get irritated. I just want to get on with the transaction, but maybe that's just me. Your thoughts on 072 702 1702.
EWN Sport.
Solekele, good evening. I know your loyalties, okay? So there's Banyana, Bafana, Box, Who've I missed? Proteas. Hockey.
As long as you wear the
Not
South African
Ulster
colours.
this weekend.
Definitely not.
Ulster.
As long as you wear the South African colours, I'll back you.
Okay, so it's that simple.
It's that simple.
Even in, I don't know, Ultimate Fight Club, we're not allowed to talk about that. What? Didn't work. Hugo Broos has been talking today.
And he believes that his assistant, Helman Kelele, would be the ideal candidate to succeed him as Bafana Bafana head coach. Bruce will call time on his 40-year football career at the conclusion of next year's FIFA World Cup. And when discussing his successor, he was clear on who he was backing.
Best thing to do should be that Helman becomes the coach after me, because then you have a follow-up, same thing. When Helman will take the team, the way of work and philosophy, and it will stay the same with a little bit more African thing, because I'm a European. He thinks in a lot of things, 95% of the things he thinks the same thing as me. And that's why I'm so happy with him. It should be very good. The only problem with Helman is that he don't have the qualification.
Bruce has also added that he will consider naturalized South African players for Bafana selection only if they're better than the ones he currently has at his disposal.
Yes, players abroad, yes, but they have to put something extra on your team. Not because they are playing there. No, when this one coming, okay, we don't have it here, then we take him. But you see, with what we proved now, that we also have here what in that days was abroad. Why should you take then someone who's playing there, I don't know where? Because he's there. That's not the reason why you take a player.
South Africa beat Pakistan by 8 wickets to level the test series at 1-1 thanks to Simon Harmer's career best figures of 6 for 50. Harmer took 4 wickets in the home side's second innings as the Proteas boosted their confidence ahead of a series with India next month.
I don't think we were as good in the first test as we were in the second test. So I think as a result, to leave here 1-1 is a good result. I think India is a very tough team to play at the moment, and especially in their own conditions. We need to learn very quickly from the things that we didn't do so well in this series and make sure that when we get to India that we're putting our best foot forward on day one.
At the same time, Proteas T20 stand-in captain David Miller and Gerald Gadzia have been ruled out of the upcoming white ball tour of Pakistan. Miller has a grade 1 right hamstring strain, while Gadzia suffered a pectoral muscle injury. Matthew Bretzka and Tony DeZorzi have been added to the T20 squad as Donovan Ferreira will captain that side. For Odniel Batman, he'll replace Gadzia in the ODI squad. And Bulls front rower Jan-Hendrik Wessels has been found guilty of grabbing, twisting or squeezing the genitals of another player by a United Rugby Championship disciplinary panel. Wessels was cited after the round 4 game against Canuck last Friday, and he'll now serve a 9-game suspension. Tolagile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
Huawei Watch GT6 Series, 2025's must-have smartwatch, introducing the king of power. Up to 21 days of unstoppable battery life in a sleek titanium and ceramic design that's as strong as it's stylish. The Trackmaster with 24/7 heart rate tracking, sleep monitoring, advanced health management, and the world's first cycling virtual power feature. Fully compatible with both iOS and Android. Get yours now from just 169 Rand a month over 36 months or 4,999 Rand at selected retailers. T's and C's apply.
In a world where a lot can change in 6 years, you can rest assured knowing that Hino's 6-year drivetrain warranty won't. All Hino trucks now come standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty, protecting your investment all the way from pistons to gears. Built to keep your business moving, supporting uptime, growth and daily operations, because although a lot can change in 6 years, their warranty promise won't. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
702. Stephen is on the Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
Good to hear from you tonight. 16 minutes now to 7 the time. You know how to get in touch. Well, the Oasis Crescent Property Fund saying its direct property net income down by 3% in its interim results, but investment income, both from its local properties and its international properties, are up by around 18%. Adam Ibrahim is the CEO of Oasis Group Holdings. Adam, good evening. Welcome to the Money Show. You focus on properties primarily in the Western Cape. You do have some in KZN. There are a couple of others in other places. What kind of return are you getting from your properties at the moment? The Western Cape is where everyone is focused right now in your game.
Hello, Stephen, and thank you so much for that. So if you look at the long term, the Oasis Property Equity Fund delivered an 11% per annum return over 20 years. That's intrinsic value, the underlying portfolio value, and 10% based on the share price. And the gap between the share price and the intrinsic value is about 27%. If you look at the portfolio, predominantly Western Cape, we call it a local with a global reach. And so we have a global portfolio. The fund is unique that, one, it's Western Cape focused, two, it's got a global portfolio, and three, it's one of the few funds that has no debt globally. And we're really well positioned because South Africa we view as ready for takeoff. Some of the structural reforms under Operation Vundulela is coming to fruition. We have electricity, we have an improvement in logistics. And then Cape Town, our home turf, which we know it's our local turf, the fundamentals is no vacancies, demand is very strong, supply is in short supply. And so the next 5-7 years, we anticipate very, very strong growth from the portfolio.
You also have a property in KZN, the Ridge. Do you see a big difference between the situation in KZN and the Western Cape?
Yes, obviously KZN had a couple of unfortunate experiences, the riots of 22 and then numerous levels of floods. But I think that creates an opportunity because, for example, we rebuilt the Ridge in 2022. So you've got a very modern facility with all the major tenants putting their top-end anchor facilities, Checkers with a 7,500 and fully integrated 60/60. And so, it's a local business, and I think in the local area, the fundamentals are very strong. And KZN, having had, four once in 100-year floods, are unlikely to get much floods. They could happen, but the risk is lower. And, the events of 22 is unlikely to be repeated.
I think it was 21, but I take the point. So from what I can see, there is a lot of opportunity in KwaZulu-Natal for various reasons. The population's also growing there very strongly. That helps. But do you find that it's harder to run and maintain properties in one province than the other? I mean, the Western Cape, obviously this is hugely contested and gets into a political fight very quickly, but according to that administration, just delivers better services. And I would imagine there are plenty of people in KwaZulu-Natal who would probably complain about the services they get there. Do you notice that difference?
So let's focus on, our local areas. So in, the region Shallcross, I think, working with local authorities, working with the local communities, I think we've delivered sustained excellence of providing community services for the community and creating a shopping experience and hopefully a development experience for multi-purpose opportunities. The Western Cape, obviously, we have a much bigger exposure. And, it's our local playground, I would say. But this is where we grew up. This is what we understand. It's in our DNA and it's in our veins. And, again, we're investing in a couple of strategic nodes, the Eastern Seaboard. That's where the growth of the city has to happen, densification. And then Cape Town's old traditional manufacturing and logistics hubs of Epping and Sax Circle, Bellville. It's got an abundant supply of electricity. It's got easy access to the ports and airport. And then we've got 160,000 square meters of service land around Cape Town Airport along the N2. And, over the next couple of years, we'll build that out. So we see phenomenal opportunities in the Western Cape. The Western Cape has got a very dynamic environment at the moment because the semigration into the country, into the Western Cape. You've also got the global investment into the Cape. So, and Cape Town naturally, with the Cape Peninsula, with the mountain down the spine and two oceans on either side, you have a supply scarcity. So when you're able to put in high quality facilities and the tenants will arrive and we have long-standing relationships with our tenants.
Sure.
And sorry, carry on.
Sorry to interrupt. You made the point at the start that you don't have any debt. So obviously you want to invest, you would like to grow, I'm sure. How are you going to fund that?
So, we have cash on balance sheet. We have, secondly, we have a reinvestment plan of dividends. So between 40 and 50% of shareholders reinvest their dividends. And so that's a significant retention that happens twice a year. And then thirdly, it's a relatively small fund at the moment. So what we will be doing is doing specific share placements over the next couple of months, and then maybe do one or two thereafter, so that we raise equity and broaden the shareholder base and increase the liquidity in the portfolio, and in that way driving performance, driving value creation, and adding significant value.
And Adam, your operations in the UK, you are exposed there a little bit. That economy is having a tough time. Are you finding it difficult there?
I think that, I think we focus on micro sectors of the economy, and we focus on our own business. So every economy and every industry has its own opportunities and challenges. We see endless opportunities, and we've taken financial services to the financial service capital of the world and see endless opportunities in that. And so we've been in the UK. Our global business was established in December 2000, initially in Guernsey, then in Ireland, and we opened our UK business in 2012, merged our Irish and UK business. So we see it's an area of endless opportunities domestically in the UK. And UK being one of the global financial markets, it's the route to the global investors in Europe and the Middle East. And our target is South Africa, Europe, Middle East, UK.
Adam Ibrahim, thanks very much indeed. Do appreciate it. CEO of Oasis Group Holdings, 8 minutes to 7.
The stage, the lights, the crowd, everything's perfect until suddenly someone slips on the dance floor. A speaker lands in the buffet. In an instant, your masterpiece is a mess. That's why Auto & General is there with Events Liability Insurance. We handle the unexpected so you don't have to. Plan the party, wow the guests, leave the rest to us. For more information on Events Liability Insurance, visit autogen.co.za. Auto & General, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
What do partners of the Gates Foundation do when facing the world's toughest challenges? They keep going. From discovering a plastic drape that helps detect excessive postpartum bleeding faster, to developing better bed nets to kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes, to researching an RSV vaccine that could save hundreds of thousands of children. For every problem, there are people who prove that progress is possible. The Gates Foundation, partners of human potential. Learn more at gatesfoundation.org/keep going.
Running a business can feel like a solo mission. I mean, you've got the hustle. If only your office Wi-Fi was your employee of the month. Turn on your success with Telkom Business, the partner that always shows up. Get a reliable 25 by 25 megabytes per second connection with Stream Connect Fiber for only 489 rands per month.
This summer, your business deserves the best. Visit telkom.co.za/business for deals that connect your business. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, proud sponsor of the Absa Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
The Money Show, Tech Thursday.
So in the mid-1990s, I was a university student. I came home for a vac, and I realized that my parents had an internet connection and they didn't really have a proper browser. And I wanted to get Netscape. That was the browser at the time. To get Netscape, I actually phoned, can you believe it? I phoned the Netscape office in Joburg. There was such a thing. I asked, how can I get Netscape? They said, you can download it. I said, I can't go onto the internet. They said, go to the CNA, remember them, go and get a PC magazine, and there will be a free CD there with Netscape. And that's exactly what I did. Netscape lasted about 4 or 5 years. Google came along, and that was the end of Netscape. Google has been the dominant browser ever since. 25 years, counting. I mean, for a long time, the sort of Google Doodle was a major talking point in offices. People would play the game of whatever it was. Now, for the first time, there seems to be a proper challenger to Google. It's from ChatGPT, and it's called Atlas. Siphumelele Zondi, good evening. Thank you for your patience with my long story. What does Atlas do that Google doesn't?
Atlas does, hello Stephen, nice to start there. Yes, so Atlas does a lot of things that Google does, but Atlas also utilizes artificial intelligence. As we do know that a lot of search these days, people no longer go to search engines. They go to various platforms, including ChatGPT, to look for various things. So I suppose maybe it would have been a natural progression that they try the search engine route to see if people would go to them to find the information that they would otherwise find on search engines like Google, which has been dominant in the space, as you say, for the last 25 years.
Google will already give you AI results. The question then, I suppose, becomes, which is the better result, right? Whose AI is better?
Well, totally. And also the way that it's being done right now by Atlas or OpenAI through Atlas is that some parts of it are currently subscription-based in order for you to then figure out what sort of methods or mechanisms are actually better than Google. But yes, it's going to be a case of who's giving you better results at the moment, but also because it's embedded on ChatGPT, which is something that a lot of people are now gravitating towards. You might find that might actually be something that some people like. The fact that they don't have to go to a separate ChatGPT. They can go to Atlas, and then Atlas would link them back to ChatGPT, which would then give the information to them.
There's a whole industry around gaming Google, around being the first hit. So if you Google, let's say, breaking news, you'll get all sorts of websites that are sponsored. They pay Google for that. That entire business model surely changes now.
Well, it does. But also, you need to remember that with Atlas being embedded on ChatGPT, for example, they are still in a way trying to build what their platform is going to look like. And they're working, I suppose, with us, the users of the platform, in order to create this information. So the business definitely does change, where sometimes you'd find that the information you were looking for would be prioritized. For now, the belief is that if you use Atlas, you are actually going to get all the information that you're looking for without the prioritization for now of information of the companies and organizations that would have paid for their information to be at the top.
One of the things that Google did, and I suppose other search engines before it, was they were able to act as a sort of a filter or a funnel, if you like, for the information you were looking for. There was suddenly so much out there. You really needed to get hits that actually meant something to you, that were useful to you. Now, ChatGPT and the AI through Google are doing the same thing. But that then also has a big impact on what we read, on what we know. It has a big impact in shaping our information environment. And doesn't that mean then that ChatGPT could, if this all works for them, have quite a lot of power in a way that maybe we haven't quite thought through yet?
It also means on that same power, because the thing is, it also means they might know a lot more about us as well. And we sort of like, because we are training this tool, we are now training a search engine to better understand individuals. And what they've also allowed is that you can move information from your Google browser, the information that you've been searching throughout the years. It moves over to Atlas, but it also then gets to understand us, the individuals, better, and I suppose larger society better. And you've handed over over basically who you are to this particular search engine. And what they've also said that they're going to try to do, or it seems like it's already, some people are already able to use it if they subscribe, is that you can get the AI itself to search for certain things for you instead of you typing what you need and sometimes getting it wrong as we do on Google. So the AI is going to understand you so well that you might have to just give it a cue of some sort, and then it's going to finish off what it is that you need and bring out the results, and maybe even go to the website for you without you pressing much, apart from giving it cues. So it's almost like it's a way of handing over yourself and your power to these machines that, yes, in the end might say that they're making our lives easier, and they probably do make our lives easier, like these search engines that are coming through now, this particular new search engine. But at the same time, how much information are we giving away to the machine in order for it to search the way that they say will be better than everything that we've done in the past?
Siphumelele Zondi, thanks very, very much. Really do appreciate it, our tech expert. Searching for the latest in what's happened around the world? Search no longer. Good evening, it's 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Maki Malapo. The head of organised crime in South Africa, Richard Shibiri, is accused of having close ties to criminally accused tender tycoon Vusimusi Ket Matlala. This was revealed by Witness B, a member of Gauteng organised crime, who testified before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry today. Witness B provided excerpts of WhatsApp messages between Shibiri and Matlala to the commission as part of her evidence. Shibiri's name has featured on several occasions before the commission this week, being painted as an untrustworthy cop who had questionable motives when engaging detectives probing high-profile cases. Arun Singh has more.
While WhatsApp messages between SAPS's head of organised crime, Major General Richard Shibiri, and Tembisa Hospital tender tycoon Vusimusi Ket Matlala were not made public, they were presented to the chairperson of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The messages allegedly suggest that there was an exchange of money between Shibiri and criminally accused Matlala. Witness B, a member of organised crime, presented the messages as evidence to the commission today. Evidence leader, Advocate Tabang Pue, compiled the WhatsApp messages and handed them over to Commission Chairperson, Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga.
At a later stage, she discovered in Mr. Matlala's phones that General Shibiri had constant communications and exchanges of money.
The messages were recovered from Matlala's cell phone, which was seized during a police operation. Arun Singh, Eyewitness News.
Former Police Minister Bekit Cele says the Minister of Police does not have the power to de-establish the political killings task team. Cele says there are various processes and consultations that need to take place before such a decision is made. He's currently giving evidence at Parliament's ad hoc committee probing allegations of police corruption. Cele is responding to questions around the disbandment of the political killings task team, a decision which was taken by his successor, Minister Sinza Mchunu.
But the minister cannot go establish or disestablish. So you still have to go through the National Commissioner for establishment and disestablishment. So there are a few of those that I will remember. By the way, this one is part of it, though on a larger scale, because it was announced by the President.
The DA in Gauteng is calling on Premier Panyaza Lesufi to account for the funds spent on the crime prevention wardens. Lesufi announced the disbandment of the unit yesterday, saying wardens need to undergo proper training to effectively serve as peace officers. Just hours later, the Public Protector released a report finding that the establishment of the unit was irregular. Speaking at a media briefing in Johannesburg today, DA Gauteng leader Solim Simanga emphasized that Lesufi must take responsibility for what he described as reckless spending.
What the public should actually be asking is, what has happened since the time that he was told that this is wrong? What has happened to the monies that have been spent? Who has actually benefited out of this? Why hasn't the right steps been done from the get-go? But let's also then take it a step further. He now says, now this thing is going to be phased out. Who's going to carry the cost? Municipalities are certainly not going to be able to then carry the cost of this.
In the Western Cape, 6 Milnerton High School learners charged with 8 counts of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm have been released on 2,000 rand bail each. They appeared in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today. In total, 8 grade 11 learners were accused of assaulting a grade 10 learner on Friday last week. 2 of those learners are underage and they were released with a warning from the court. Carlo Peterson has more.
The 6 accused Milnerton learners were released on bail today after being given strict instructions by the magistrate to stay away from the complainants in the matter. 8 learners from the school have laid criminal complaints of assault against the accused. National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson Eric Ntabazalila detailed some of the bail conditions.
They must not directly or indirectly contact the witnesses as well as the complainants. They must not get close to the witnesses and the complainants. If they see the complainants, they must walk away.
The accused are also not allowed to enter the school premises while the matter is before the court. The Western Cape Education Department has arranged an alternative venue for the accused to write their school exams. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News, Cape Town Magistrates Court.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow will never bow to pressure from the United States or any other country. Putin also cautioned today that the response to any strikes deep into Russia would be very serious and overwhelming. US President Donald Trump hit Russia's 2 biggest oil companies with sanctions in a sharp policy shift on Moscow's war in Ukraine, prompting global oil prices to rise by nearly 5% today, and India to consider cutting Russian imports. The sanctions target oil giants Rosneft and Lukoil, which between them account for more than 5% of global oil output, and mark a dramatic U-turn by Trump, who said only last week that he and Russian President Vladimir Putin would soon hold a summit in Budapest to try and end the war in Ukraine. Putin says US sanctions are an unfriendly act and will have certain consequences, but they will not significantly affect their economic well-being, adding that Russia's energy sector feels confident. Putin says breaking the balance in the global energy markets could lead to a hike in prices that would be uncomfortable for countries such as the US, especially given the internal political calendar in the United States. Gold's trading at $4,137.27 an ounce. The rand's at 17.34 to the dollar, at 23.09 to the pound, at 20.12 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $66.13 a barrel.
Accident scene in El Dorado Park. That's on the N12 westbound after the Golden Highway, causing heavy delays. There's also slow-moving traffic in the mother city. That's on the M3 southbound approaching Newlands, also bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is on the N1 outbound between Sable Road and Belleville.
A look at your weather. Clear sunny skies in store for Gauteng. Tomorrow, Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 11 degrees and peak at highs of 30. Pretoria is at 12 and 31. Vereeniging is at 10, also reaching highs of 31 degrees. A partly cloudy start for the mother city. Otherwise, clear skies along with fresh southerly winds at a low of 14 and a high of 24 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The head of organised crime in South Africa, Richard Shibiri, is accused of having close ties to criminally accused tender tycoon Vusimusi Matlala.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
8 after 7. Good evening. Glad you're with us for the second hour. Plenty to come. Don't forget investment school tonight. The perils of not investing, but actually doing things in cash. We'll be talking about that this evening. Really looking forward to that conversation this evening. Also, we are going to be talking about cybersecurity and your small business. And before all of that, we'll be speaking to the CEO of Nova Chocolates in Spending It. Wessel van der Merwe is the co-founder at Nova Chocolate. Their big claim to fame: they make chocolate without milk. They make chocolate that's vegan. They make chocolate that doesn't necessarily have sugar in it. I don't quite know how they do it. Well, we'll ask Wessel van der Merwe in a couple of moments.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
So many things coming out of the various commissions that we're watching, the Madlanga Commission, the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Commission, all about the SAPS. And I was struck by a piece on MoneyWeb today around what's been happening at the inquiry. This is the parliamentary inquiry into the Road Accident Fund, the RAF. It is astonishing how much money seems to have disappeared and what's been going on there. And I'm not that sorry to say this actually, Colin Swallow is at the center of it all. And this was someone we already knew from 2017, I think it was, had given himself a pay increase of 350% when he was at PRASA. So, appointing him to the Road Accident Fund, I don't know whose idea that was. Well, I suppose it was Fikile Mbalula's idea. He was the transport minister at the time. But the MoneyWeb article points to testimony in Parliament from the head of the actuarial fund at the Road Accident Fund, so the person who'd been managing parts of the money. He said that there'd been excess payments of 22 billion rand. Now, I'm hoping that it's not that we lost 22 billion rand in kind of a very short process. I'm hoping that there was a sort of better explanation for that. But it is an amazing amount of money. And one of the things that we see with the Road Accident Fund is how long it will take to get accountability. And it reminds me of what happened at the National Lotteries Commission. Raymond Joseph, who really did the most amazing journalism on what was going on in the National Lotteries Commission. Everything he'd said has pretty much been found to be correct. There's a special investigating unit investigation into that shows that. And it's taking forever to get any kind of accountability. The same, by the way, for what we're seeing in the spending, the misspending during COVID. And the same with Tembisa. We see the interim report from the SIU, 2 billion rand stolen here, 1 billion rand stolen there, Hangwani Maludzi, all the rest, whose name came up, by the way, Wabeki Kleda, he's still testifying in Parliament, but all of that's come up. There are so many different links to all of this. And what we don't see is anyone being held accountable for money that's been stolen from government, essentially our money. If you're a South African, it's your money. I don't know how you feel about that tonight. On 011-883-0702, 021-446-0567 and voice notes on 072-702-1702.
702 with Stephen Grootes.
Email him on stephen@702.co.za.
Spending It is brought to you by the Glenlivet. Live Original. True originals. Don't drink and drive. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly. Well, I don't know what your plans are tonight, but they might involve at some point, I'm kind of hoping they do, a small piece of chocolate. Something that just for a moment will give you a sense of something you haven't had through the day. Most chocolates do have a little bit of milk. They have a little bit of sugar in some way. Some chocolates are a little bit different. Wessel van der Merwe is the co-founder at Nova Chocolate. He had a long history actually in merchant banking before he went into chocolate. Wessel, good evening. Good to talk to you. What makes your chocolates different? I suppose what I'm really asking you is, are they really vegan?
Good evening, Stephen. Yes. Well, we've got two ranges. The one is our dark range and the one is our milk range. Our dark range is vegan and our milk range is just what we refer to no sugar added because of the milk in there. And I think the big difference of ours, and that's also our strap line, is we guilt-free chocolates, guilt-free pleasures. So how we got involved, actually, just to clear the facts, is that we bought into the business, myself and another investor, just a week before COVID, to be exact. And the chocolate was actually founded by a graphic designer who had all these beautiful boxes. And then she tied up with a confectionery chef who worked for Richard Branson, and they formulated the original first 6 slabs of Nova chocolates. And just in the chocolate industry, we refer to the 3 Ps: product, packaging, and price. And I think they got it spot on. Since then, we obviously invested and we built a range to 11 flavors in the range, yes.
When you think of a flavor, some chocolate flavors you get now, things that would never occur to me. And you have to decide what to include in chocolate and what works, and not everything works. I've never seen, and I hope I never see, garlic chocolate, but there are plenty of flavors that people have really come to enjoy.
Yeah, I think obviously you get your main commercial lines that's the vanilla chocolates, and then when you come to the Covertier chocolates and handmade like ours, we can play around a bit with different flavors, orange, our chili chocolates and things like that. But it's more for bespoke market. And but again, our type of followers, myself and other executives, we attend most of the markets as well. You know, we get a bit of a cult following. Once you have a Nova chocolate, people convert to it quite easily because it tastes like. I always challenge some of the famous brands to a blind testing to understand which is the sugar-free and which is a sugar chocolate.
Mm. How do you replicate the function, the sweetness that sugar gives you?
So we use a sweetener called maltitol that's been developed for us by companies in Spain and in Belgium that works extremely well with chocolate.
Okay, so you found a substitute basically.
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Maltitol, yes.
Is there a limit to how many flavors you think there can be? I mean, at some point you've got to kind of manage, you know, just in terms of your brand, you don't want 100 flavors. So is 11 the right number, do you think? I mean, could you go even higher? And you know, every time you do something that's unique, that no one else can do, you might hook another few customers forever.
Yeah, look, if you ask me that question, I would say the perfect number is 10 most probably, and that you rotate some of the, you know, you bring in new flavors every second year into your ranges and get rid of the slow-moving flavors.
Mm. We've seen international cocoa prices hitting record levels. The places in the world where it grows have been hit by difficult weather. Does that must affect you? I mean, it's a big part of your raw ingredients, I presume.
Yeah, look, I mean, if I can maybe extend, luckily I was on a cycling trip when the cocoa price went 300% up, and I only saw it a week later. But luckily we had some stock in our warehouse to produce chocolates. Yeah, I did have a big effect on the costing of chocolate. It's still extremely high, but most of the chocolate manufacturers worldwide did increase their prices. So we did protect our margins slightly since the massive increase.
Chocolate's a sort of decadent pleasure. You can, I mean, I'm told you can live without it, but people say that about coffee, and that can't be true. Do you find demand goes up or down? Is there something about chocolate that maybe keeps it constant?
Well, firstly, the doctor said you must have 16 grams of chocolate every day. And so I have to get that one in. Yeah, we find the winter months and obviously special occasions, Valentine's, Christmas, Mother's Day, there's an increase in sale. But for some reason, you know, over winter months, there's good sales going in chocolates.
That's very interesting. Wessel van der Merwe, thanks very much indeed. CEO of Nova Chocolate. Really do appreciate that. Interesting to see that it goes up in winter. You pour a glass of the Glenlivet and time slows. A hint of spice, fruit and oak warmth. Now imagine the same spirit of craftsmanship with the elegance of the Mercedes-Benz AMG. When you buy Glenlivet, 12 to 25-year-old, you could win a brand new Mercedes-Benz AMG. Visit theglenlivet.com or any participating store for a chance to win. Made to follow no one. The Glenlivet. Live original. True originals don't drink and drive. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly. T's and C's apply.
One degree defines you as a master of business, the MBA. The life-changing Gibbs MBA empowers you to lead an organization or start your own business within the dynamic African context. Choose from 90 electives and 8 focus areas: general management, entrepreneurship, consulting, manufacturing, digital, humane leadership, healthcare, and climate leadership. For our next information session, go to gibbs.co.za/MBA. Gibbs is a Triple Crown internationally accredited business school in Ilovo, Sandton.
Looking for a safe, stylish way to stay in the home you love? Lifter's premium European-designed home lifts are the perfect solution. With over 500 installations across South Africa, Lifter makes everyday living easier, safer and more comfortable with no costly renovations. Stay independent and future-proof your home today. Call Lifter on 080 73 73 73 7 or visit lifter.co.za. Lifter, your home, your lift, your freedom.
You can become a victim of a legal problem
wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS Legal to 48721. That's legal to 48721. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
As the world's leaders meet for the G20 summit in Johannesburg, the eyes of the world will be upon us. Not just to South Africa, but Africa. It's the very first time that this summit has been held on our continent. What the world will see is a country building infrastructure that improves the lives of its people and lives up to the summit's themes of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. SANRAL's investment and projects ensure that we undertake this journey together with our neighbors. The N4 Maputo Corridor project stimulates trade to Maputo in Mozambique. The upgrade extends along the N4 to the Trans-Kalahari Corridor, growing trade for Botswana. The N7 from the Cape to Namibia is growing cross-border commerce, and the N1 project facilitates trade with Zimbabwe. The world will see an Africa that's building a better continent through roads. SANRAL, an agency of the Department of Transport.
Show. Small Business Focus.
Small Business Focus is brought to you by Capitec. Start up or scale up with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Well, I'm sure you've seen plenty of headlines around cyber heists and hacks, the kind of problems you know can have a big impact on any kind of firm, but on smaller firms, it can be catastrophic. Brian Pinnock is a cyber expert, joins us now. Brian, good evening. I mean, I think for a smaller company, a hack that lasts for just one day or one theft of information can be disastrous. How difficult is it to protect a smaller firm against this kind of thing?
So good evening, Stephen. Yes, we're definitely seeing a bit of a surge in cybercrime at the moment, and it is very difficult for smaller firms to protect and defend themselves. I think one of the reasons really is firstly that they're actually disproportionately targeted, and we can talk to that a little bit. It's not just the large firms and the global corporations that we see. They're the ones that get into the headlines. And sadly, even though they make the headlines, they typically have the kind of financial resources to actually weather the storm. Whereas I think there are a lot smaller businesses that get hit with all kinds of things, and they're not able to actually weather the storm for all kinds of reasons, just not having the financial resources to do that. So yeah, it's absolutely happening. But I think on the positive side, there's definitely things that small businesses can do to protect themselves and prepare themselves for these kinds of things.
I'm a little surprised that smaller businesses are targeted. I mean, it's not like they have much money to give. Are they targeted just because, almost by accident, or is there a deliberate targeting of them?
So I think the important thing to understand is that you're not actually facing a sort of single hacker in their mom or dad's basement wearing a hoodie. Most people don't understand that actually what you're facing is a sort of an ecosystem of human adversaries. And they do all kinds of things. But I think the key part to understand is it's not just run by lone hackers anymore. It's kind of a global supply chain. You'll have one group stealing access, and they might, just have some kind of a spray and pray type approach where they have a system that actually just harvests and hoovers up a whole lot of information. You'll have another group running the ransomware. And again, they don't discriminate. They actually just run those against those access, those sort of initial access credentials, which they've now bought from the first group that I just mentioned. Then you've got groups that launder the money and so on and so on. So it's very organized and specialized and scalable, but it's kind of non-discriminatory. And I think that's what people don't realize is they're not up against someone who's going, who should I target now today? A bank seems like a good idea because, I rob banks because that's where all the money is. That's definitely just not how it works. They very, very much, you're just up against a broad system that's just targeting everything and anything in its path. And unfortunately, small and medium businesses typically are kind of under-resourced in the cybersecurity space for all kinds of obvious reasons. and they tend to fall victim to these attacks, as you say, maybe almost by accident in some cases.
So where should a small company start when trying to protect themselves? And I think this is one of the big problems, that the owner of the company may just have absolutely no idea of what to do.
I think that's true. And, for all these headlines, and I see now that it's Cybersecurity, Cyber Awareness Month, I think it is, you're seeing a lot of these sort of reports coming out from the cybersecurity vendors. And the stats they've got are actually accurate. So, I don't want to sort of poo-poo the stats at all. They're very real. I've been involved when I worked at vendors previously in collecting that information. However, you shouldn't let the statistics scare you, and it's kind of a scare tactic by the vendors and trying to sell you more tools, because buying more doesn't always make you safer. What can actually make you safer is doing things, just being disciplined about the basics, having layers that make sense in your context, and that can actually give you better results than just buying more technology. I can dive a little bit deeper if you'd like. What I often do when talking to particularly people who are not that familiar with the technology is, and it's nice talking to South Africans, very difficult to do the same analogy in places like Germany. They kind of look at you quizzically, but really, if you think about your house, we're actually have a very good cyber mindset. We've already figured out what our attack surface is. That's our perimeter. We know where the weak points are, and we put certain controls in place. And you have compensating controls. If someone gets over your wall, well, then you have burglar bars. You've got beams in the garden. You've got armed response, hopefully. So you've got these prevention and protection and detection controls naturally. And really, all you're doing when you go into cybersecurity is you're doing something similar. Is you're figuring out what your attack surface is, and you're working out if someone gets through one control, could they move laterally? Much the same way if someone jumps over your wall, could they get into your kitchen window? It's very similar, but just in the digital world. But I think the critical part is most people have some element of that initial protection in place. What they don't do well is how to respond when things go wrong. And that's the critical part, is have some kind of a formal incident response plan, much the same way as you'd have practice your fire drill. What will you do if someone gets into your organization, into your digital infrastructure, and basically makes all of your data unavailable? What are the consequences? How do you recover from that? I mean, and it's really about planning to get back on your feet.
Sure. I mean, this would be a 2010 solution. You'd back up all of your information, if you're a smaller firm, onto a flash drive every day and sort of take it home with you. But I mean, I imagine things have moved on since then, and you can't really do that.
Yeah, I think there's actually some very good services that are available, and you've got to just find that sort of sweet spot between actually investing enough in cybersecurity and not over-investing in the cybersecurity, because cyber risk is actually just yet another business risk. It's slightly different to most business risks because, if you think about typical business risks like financial risk or operational risk, those things are kind of static and probabilistic. Cyber risk is a bit of a different category because of the fact that you're up against this ecosystem of humans. But fundamentally, it's about where do you invest, what is sort of just enough, and what are the consequences if somebody gets in, and actually building those. And there are tools and services. It's got better. There's a lot of things you can buy as a service now, so you don't necessarily have to get all those skills yourself. So there's definitely things that you can do.
I suppose the trick is to just be aware, isn't it? I mean, maybe, spend half an hour a week on kind of knowing what the latest threats are, things like that. Again, I know small business owner after small business owner is going to say, I don't have the time.
Yes, it is, absolutely. But there's a lot of very, very good information out there. And it's super useful now that you've got these chatbots, these AI chatbots, where you can actually put in some, they're sort of much maligned, rightly so in certain instances, but you don't have to go and search the internet and find all these things. You can actually put in sort of fairly decent, ask it some questions in normal conversational English. And most of what will pop up are some things like, do some of your basic cyber hygiene things, and you'll get lists from there saying, inventory your assets, make sure that you configure these certain things in a secure way, make sure you've got access control, make sure that you've got the data protection and the backups and all of those kind of things, and maybe give your end users some security awareness training. Those kinds of things will pop up. Then it's up to you as a small business to prioritize, figure out which ones are going to have the biggest impact and invest appropriately, put a plan in place.
Brian Pinnock, thanks so much. The cyber expert. Really do appreciate the time on Small Business Focus.
That's the sound of your business growing. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, turn your passion into profit with Capitec Business Banking. Save up to 50% on fees. Get fast credit approvals, personalized support, and Forex for your business. Open your business banking account on our app. Bank on better with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Capitec is an authorized FSP. 46669. T's and C's apply.
Coming up
The Aubrey Masango Show
on 702
and Cape Talk.
I think I've created trouble for myself because I understand, Aubrey, tell me if this is true, that Rotendo Ndingwi is now on your show tonight.
Absolutely.
And you know, at the moment
incestuous behavior.
Wasn't able to separate the two of you.
Well, he joins me in the third hour of the show, and we're going to be looking at some of the aspects of his book, Rumble in the Jungle Reloaded, as we look at trade on the African continent. This is going to be on our Africa at a Glance feature that starts at just after 5 minutes past 10. But the hour before that, just after 9 o'clock, we're going to be looking at what's going on at the various inquisitory platforms, the ad hoc committee in Parliament, and of course the Madlanga Commission. And we'll be joined there by Oren Singh, EWN reporter, plus Professor Jacob Mofokeng. And they're going to be looking at various aspects of the information coming out of those platforms. And then the first hour of the show in our psychological matters, I'm going to be joined by Pumudzo Sambo, a coach and mentor. She's also the author of the book Purpose Found Me. And we're going to be looking at the journey that she has traveled from a very, very, very difficult youth to becoming a pastor. And that's the show tonight. Of course, the final hour is an open line.
Aubrey, thanks very much indeed. Sir. Aubrey Masango on your radio in half an hour from now. Just gone 7:30, time for the latest Eyewitness News. Mikey, good evening. The Gauteng Judge President, the Acting Judge President, Aubrey Ledwaba, this is an astonishing development.
That's right, Stephen. It's actually news just in where Acting Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba has denied receiving any money to grant bail to alleged crime kingpin Katiso Molefe. The release of Molefe on bail was discussed at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry this week, with one of the investigating officers alleging that Molefe paid 2.5 million rand for his release. The alleged crime boss was granted 100,000 rand bail in June in the Pretoria High Court after the Vereniging Magistrates Court denied his application. He was arrested for the murder of Armand Swart, a Vereniging engineer who was killed in a mistaken identity hit. Judge Ledwaba has denied receiving any bribes to grant Molefe bail. The Umkhonto Party says it will fight to ensure that everyone implicated in alleged political interference within police is held accountable. This comes as the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry and Parliament's ad hoc committee continue probing explosive allegations flagged by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The party hosted a media briefing in Durban earlier today and praised Mkhwanazi and the Political Killings Task Team for their work. Party National Chairperson Nathi Nhleko.
His courage has exposed how the state apparatus is manipulated to protect the interests of the few whilst persecuting the many.
He says accountability is paramount to ending corruption within law enforcement ranks.
As MK, we demand full accountability from those implicated, and therefore we will use every parliamentary and legal instrument at our disposal to ensure that the truth triumphs over corruption and cover-ups.
Staying in KwaZulu-Natal, 21 undocumented foreign nationals have been arrested during a multidisciplinary operation in Durban today. Authorities raided various businesses in the city targeting undocumented foreign nationals. Illicit goods were also confiscated during the operation earlier today. Nhlanhla Mabaso has more.
This morning, police, Metro Police, Border Management Authority and immigration officers raided business premises in Durban's busy West Street. During the operation, 21 illegal foreign nationals were arrested for being in the country illegally. However, one of them questioned his arrest, saying he is not a criminal.
I'm not Skebengo, I'm not what, why you throw in my shoes? I'm not Skebengo, I'm not what, I'm working, I'm poor man, you know.
KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thamsanqa Ntuli says the operation is an ongoing one.
They were able, in fact, to close down 13 shops that were operating without permits, or rather with permits that have expired. And a lot of goods were discovered which have expired, which the barcodes are not matching what the good is about. For an example, when check the barcode of a cigarette, you find that it tells you that it's something else, it's not cigarettes.
Ntuli says those arrested will be deported to their home countries. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News, Durban.
And in West Africa, Ivory Coast's fast-growing mining sector is bracing for potential disruption ahead of a tense presidential vote on Saturday, with President Alassane Ouattara seeking a fourth term and key opposition figures disqualified. Mining is a major part of efforts by the 83-year-old former IMF economist to diversify the economy of the world's top cocoa producer. Since he took power in 2011, gold output surged from around 10 metric tons in 2012 to over 58 tons in 2024, with a target of 100 tons by 2030. Ivory Coast has a history of election violence. The 2010-2011 war that brought Ouattara to power killed over 3,000 people, while clashes connected to the 2020 election left at least 85 dead. Pre-election demonstrations have taken place in multiple locations this month, and police said last Tuesday that one person was killed after being hit by a projectile during opposition protests in which hundreds were arrested. Reuters reports that fearing unrest, miners are stockpiling fuel, cyanide, caustic soda and explosives and relocating staff closer to sites to safeguard operations, and this is according to 3 industry sources. A look at your weather. A sunny Friday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 10 and 12 degrees and peak at alternating highs of 30 and 31 degrees. A cloudy start for Cape Town, otherwise clear skies along with fresh southerly winds at a low of 14 and a high of 24 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. Acting Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba has denied receiving any money to grant bail to alleged crime kingpin Katiso KT Molefe.
Turning 18 means we're used to taking on any challenge, like a boer sokkervrou, and realizing that the only bakkies that matter played for the Springboks. We've been there, providing Mzansi with a bakkie that gives more performance and endurance. Celebrate 18 years of more with the P300 LS from only 5,999 per month. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's and to book a test drive. GWM. Go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of Westbank, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Johannesburg, the Ellis Park Roar is back. The Lions are home and the Vodacom URC season has begun. This year, the mission is simple. Let's do it for our city. We are the Lions' pride, and this weekend we defend our fortress. The massive challenge is here. Our Lions take on the hardcore, relentless force of Ulster. It's a clash of titans you cannot miss. We need you, your voice, your passion, your full-throated support at the stadium. Join the Lions' pride and show the world what Joburg Rugby is made of. This is your game. This is your city. This is the Vodacom United Rugby Championship. Get your tickets now at Ticket Pro or the Lions Rugby website. Be part of the pride. Hashtag for our city.
Do you live in an estate, complex or sectional title scheme? The Community Schemes Ombud Service invites you to the Seesaw Sindaba 2025 on the 23rd and 24th of October at the Canvas Riversands Fourways. Join the Minister of Human Settlements, Thembi Simelane, alongside government officials, industry experts and key stakeholders as we explore the future of harmonious living in estates. Register today on seesaws.org.za or on our social media platforms.
You know those finfluencers, the kind of bros making bank in Bali, calling themselves forex gurus, promising you can make money while you sleep if you just buy their course. But then you end up losing sleep, waking up for different market openings, checking charts, scanning the members-only group chat for signals, and you start wondering, why do they call it day trading when you're spending all night spending your money to make money, only to realize that they make their money selling courses on how to make money. Oh. When you can't trust overnight wins, trust 30 years of market-beating returns.
Coronation. Trust is earned. Coronation is an authorized FSP.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
22 minutes now to 8 the time. Well, you know, of course, how much has been happening in recent days in certain ways. There's been a lot of talk around artificial intelligence and whether or not this might all be some kind of bubble. At the same time, we've seen gold going up strongly, then dropping suddenly and then going up again. The same things happened in platinum, and even oil suddenly shooting through the roof today. All of this might make you think that actually, with so much going on in the world, it might be much better to put my money into cash. Then I know where it is. It will be safe. I'll be able to get it, and there'll be no problem. Well, tonight's program on Investment School is all about that. You know how to get in touch to ask your question. You can do that, of course, via voice note on 072 702 1702 or 011 883 0702 or 021 446 0567. Your guests tonight are Dion Grootes, the Chief Investment Officer at Credo, and Dr. Musa Malwandla, the Co-Chief Investment Officer at Differential Capital. Gentlemen, good evening. Dion, let me start with you. I think a lot of people might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to sit this out. There's a bit of a strong case for cash at the moment. You're going to disagree with that strongly, aren't you?
Even I am, but before I give my reasons, let me just qualify it in two ways. Firstly, I think there may be people listening to this, whose risk profiles are different to others. So if you don't have a risk profile that can handle the risk, for whatever reason, it could be emotional, your own psyche, just gets too concerned when you see share prices drop and the value of your portfolio going down. That's a very valid reason, not to want to buy stocks. That's the first point, your own risk profile. It could also be because you can't afford to take the risk, because you need the money next week, next month, over the next few months. So if you've got a lower risk profile, then please don't listen to me, and please, by all means, stay in cash, because it probably is right for you. That's the first qualification I want to introduce. The second qualification is whatever I say needs to be seen over the long term, because I've got no idea what the market will do tomorrow, next week, next month. I do, however, have conviction that if you have a good quality portfolio of stocks, diversified, stocks you understand, you didn't overpay for them, over time you'll make money, and you'll make probably a lot more money than you will out of holding cash today. But once again, you've got to sit it out. You've got to go through the short-term gyrations, and over time you should be rewarded. So that ultimately sums up my view.
Dr. Musa Malwandla, how do you see it? I mean, I think there is a temptation right now, and I think your risk profile is important, but I think there is a temptation to take the safe option.
Yeah, I agree. I think fear is usually a good reason to think about it carefully. So there are two sides to it. On the one side, you do worry about whether valuations, for instance, are too high, and whether it's time to stay out of the market, or whether geopolitics and so on. And there are legitimate reasons on that camp. But on the other side, for instance, if you think about the fact that in the long term, equity markets, for instance, generally reward you a lot more than cash ever will. So, for instance, if your measure of risk is protection from the downside, so in other words, you don't want to lose any money, what is generally true is that the longer you hold on to any instrument, regardless of timing of when you enter the market, so the longer you hold on, the more time diversification you have. Let's make it practical. So over the last 20 odd years, if you had invested at any point on the JSE, the likelihood that you would have underperformed cash on a 1 year basis would probably be in the region of 45%. The likelihood that you would have underperformed over a 5 year period drops to about 38%. And the likelihood that it's over 10 years that you would underperform drops to the 30s. And that's generally true across all markets. So the point is, the longer term, the longer your horizon, and the more risk seeking you are. Equity markets and other risky assets are generally more rewarding for you. But there is obviously, when you take on risk, there is risk on the other side. It's just it diversifies over time.
Okay. Dion, could this time, so Musa, I take what you say very seriously. Dion, let me give you an argument, just for the sake of argument, as to why this time could be different. So much money has gone into so few stocks, particularly on the NASDAQ in the US, the Magnificent Seven and all the rest. Everyone is talking about AI. Everyone is doing what everyone else is doing. And this may be a time when everyone is different, because isn't everyone is doing what everyone else is doing one of the hallmarks of a bubble?
Stephen, I would answer it by saying that every time is different. The market evolves. We have different industries that dominate the market in different periods. 100 years ago, it was, the Ford motor vehicle company. 50 years before that, it was the railway companies. Bring it back to today, yes, it's the Magnificent Seven, the tech companies, and in future, maybe for the rest of my career, it'll be an AI play, which will be dominated probably by the Mag 7, but also by a few other winners that are coming through. So everything is always different. I do think what we need to acknowledge, though, is that if you look at the Magnificent Seven that dominate the market, as you rightly point out, they probably something like 30% of a global index today, just fewer than 10 companies. Could even be a high percentage today, but those are the sort of ballpark numbers. These are, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest and best companies that the world has ever seen. They've got moats that are unquestionable. They've got earnings that grow on an annual basis at very high double-digit rates. And they've got a long runway ahead of them, especially in the AI world that we are seeing now. And until recently, they were able to grow practically infinitely in a very capital-light way. They didn't need to spend anything on infrastructure. Now, of course, this is changing in the world of AI with chips and with data centers. But yes, it is becoming quite concentrated. But I think, to summarize, I think the fact that you're asking the question, you're not the only person asking the question. I see headlines about this every day in the financial press and in the various emails that I get as par for the course. And I think because enough people are worried about it, it probably means that we're nowhere close to the top. We would only be close to the top if everybody agrees, if there's like hype that sweeps all of us up at the same time, then that would be time to worry. But the fact that half the people worry most of the time makes me less worried in a slightly contrarian way.
So, Musa, let me put this to you. I accept all of that, but look at what's happening with Palantir, for example. I mean, the economists call it the world's most overvalued company. A lot of the reason for its value is that it has particular licenses with the Department of Defense, now called the Department of War, in the US. It's entirely possible Trump could have a fight with their boss and suddenly that license gets cancelled. And the value of Palantir, as a result, would surely be reduced substantially and in one move by one person.
Agreed. So I think the issue here is really what is diversification, and so for instance, if you invest in the MSCI, S&P, NASDAQ, are those really diversified investments? And the answer clearly is no. Is that a large chunk of that, in fact, most of the outperformance is led by a few names, and in this case, it would then be interesting to look at what has happened in the past. So if you look at the dot-com bubble, for instance, so NASDAQ at the peak around the year 2000, had you invested at that very point, it would have taken you, so after the correction, through 2001, it would have taken you another 15 odd years to get back above water. And similarly, there are other points in time, so where timing, if you're trying to time the market, where you're entering at the very top, you would have. So another good example is Japan. Had you invested in the Nikkei 1990, it would have taken you 25 years to get back above water. So the point here is to diversify. So if you're buying just one name or one theme, you might be exposing yourself to these singular themes that could be driven by. So, and we saw it again. So if you saw what happened to tech after DeepSeek in January, Feb, that's the same thing. So in this case, it was one single event that destroyed value across all names exposed to this one theme, which is AI.
Okay. There's a sort of extreme example of what you talk about, Musa. And let me put it to you, Deon Grootes. If in 1929, Black Friday, the start of the Great Depression, the US Dow Jones only reached that number again, the peak, in 1954. So that's a whole Second World War later, right? I mean, if you had been in cash in 1929, you would have been in a much better position, I'm fairly certain. So I understand, obviously, the longer-term case for investing, but aren't there times when actually, and I realize the Depression is the ultimate extreme example, okay? I mean, in a way, that makes it a slightly silly example. But isn't that also an example of something we need to be a little bit mindful of?
Perhaps, and if you frame it like that, then clearly it sounds very risky to stay in stocks at times when the market is at an all-time high, not only in terms of the level of the index, but also in terms of a number of measures, the various multiples that analysts will focus on. But I do want to say that you pointed out the Depression. That clearly was, quite a time in the history of the world, predates all of us. So perhaps our parents lived through it. But also, if you look at the checks and balances that's been introduced into the financial system over the last 100 years, the Fed as we know it today, with all its faults, the way that it works, when it, pushes up interest rates and brings it down, those lessons were really only learned, and that science behind it, if you agree that it's somewhat scientific, only really evolved in the 1930s. Before that, we didn't have that. And we know that, where we are today, the Fed is a powerful force in the world. Whenever they move interest rates, it has an impact on the market. So I guess what I want to say is the world is quite different and a lot more sophisticated, a lot more clever players, including at a structural sort of level, where the Fed operates, than it was at that time. Can I say something about Palantir, just in response to your point earlier, Stephen, if you don't mind? I don't want to sound like the biggest Palantir bull out there. That would be a dangerous position to take. We're talking here about a company which, the last time I looked at it, has a historic PE ratio of something like 600. Now, of course, that sounds, quite giddy. But all I want to say is, in response to your question, I don't think it's that simplistic to say that somebody like Donald Trump can really pull the plug on Palantir. I saw an article, I think yesterday, in a publication, an online publication called The Free Press. I think it's the FP.com, for those of you who want to go and look for it. And the headline was, Palantir has lots of enemies. Do they even know what it does? and the subline said, it's hard to explain something that can put chicken nuggets in Walmart and kill Osama bin Laden. Now, of course, the reference to killing Osama bin Laden is the one that you essentially, refer to, which is the government case and ultimately the defense case. But it's a much more versatile company than that, which is ultimately able to connect disparate databases and come up with, implementable conclusions for companies. And I think that explains why they've done so well and why it looks so expensive today. Now, will it get even more expensive than a 600 PE? Time will tell. What I want to say is, I think in this AI world that we're operating, it's a little bit more complex than one-dimensional kind of business cases for a lot of these companies.
No, sure. Dion, thank you. Dion Grootes is the Chief Investment Officer at Credo. Dr. Musa Malwandla is the co-CIO, Chief Investment Officer at Differential Capital. They're with us on Investment School through until 8 o'clock. We've got another 10 minutes or so. Your calls and questions for them, voice notes on 072 702 1702.
Summer is about rewarding yourself with oceanic views, sizzling braais, and so much more. Earn your share of 120 million rand in real cash back, depending on your rewards tier, when you pay with your Absa Visa card. Plus, enter the Absa Swiper competition and stand a chance to win one of 10 cars. This summer could be the best you've had in years. Your story matters. Absa, T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
Ah, guys, you must know your till slip is gonna get even longer. That new discount better rewards card gets you 10% off instantly. But now, on top of that discount, you get an extra 5% off on over 140 brands. You just hand in your script or shop from the pharmacy. With 15% off instantly at the till. Your discount till slip never looked better. How nice, man.
Running a business is tough. You need tools that just work. That's why more South African businesses are switching to Mac. At iStore, we make it easy with 4,000 rands in added value when you switch. That's 3 years extended warranty and remote tech support, leaving you to focus on everything else. Switch to Mac with iStore, your expert partner. T's and C's apply. Mac at iStore runs smooth as business should.
Betway's exclusive new games are taking the world by storm. Featuring massive megaways jackpots. Take your shot on Cash and Riches, Wolf Blaze, Gallo Gold Brunos, and many more incredible experiences for you to choose from. You're guaranteed to find a new ultra fun favorite. Get way more only at Betway. Betway is licensed by the Mpumalanga Economic Regulator. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. NRGP counseling line 0800 006 008. All events are fixed odds betting games.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, proud sponsor of the Absa Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
Dr. Musa Malwandla is the Co-Chief Investment Officer of Differential Capital. Dion Grootes is the Chief Investment Officer at Credo. We're talking about whether or not you should really skip the boom and keep your money in cash or not, whether you should be investing. In a way, this gets us straight to a sort of conversation about what's going to happen next, which is what investing is always about. Musa, I have a different question, and I do want to come at this from a slightly different angle. The sort of a real magic of an index, of a stock exchange, of equities, of the whole system, is that they should increase value, they should increase in value all the time. I mean, I was reminded when the JSE All Share passed 100,000 for the first time. It started at 100, right? It's 1,000 times more valuable over all of that time. And look, it's a long period of time. Now, if that's true, if indexes or indices always go up, then wouldn't you find that 1 or 2 days of the week there will be a record high? In other words, I suppose what I'm really asking, is the phrase, the JSE hit a record high today, actually quite a meaningless phrase? That's what it should be doing over time.
Well, no, so it's not true that it should always increase in the short term. In the long term, it definitely should. So what happens is, so in fact, there's a good way of measuring this. We usually would use something like the volatility index, and what that is the measure of the insurance or the price of a derivative on the index, which tells you how risky or how fearful people are that the market is about the level of the index. And that usually tells you how much fear is baked into the index at any one point. So whenever that index value is high, it kind of gives you a signal that that there's a lot of worry priced in, whereas when the volatility index is low, it tells you that all else equal, it should be hitting somewhere close to its highs. But obviously on the other side, there's a conversation about the fundamentals. Are companies doing as well as they should, and so on? What earnings are, what the growth environment is, what the political climate looks like. All of those all go into the valuation, but ultimately what accounts for most of the fluctuations day on day is actually the volatility index, or the fear, the amount of fear that sits within the price. And on that, one of the things, so just going back to the earlier conversations, so if you had invested on or just before Black Friday in terms of the Great Depression, you definitely would have taken a long time to recover, but there are ways to control for that kind of risk specifically. It's rand cost averaging. So in other words, instead of investing and trying to time the market, you gradually invest in and out of the market every time, as long as you can afford to. And the way most people can invest is exactly that way. So if you take a fraction of your salary every month and invest it, you protect yourself from those kinds of corrections. Whereas if you divest at one time and then invest everything back, trying to time exactly the low points and high points, that's when you expose yourself, because those points when you invest might be exactly the wrong places to do so. But I think there are ways of controlling some of these longer term risks.
Dion, in a way, the real question, I suppose, is not should you keep it in cash or should you put it into stocks. The real question is, are you investing or are you just going to stay the same? And if you stay the same, you will lose out, obviously, depending on how you hold your cash, because inflation is a thing. But it obviously depends where you put it. But in the end, if you want to retire, if you want to have more money now with the same amount of money that you actually have. In other words, if you want to have a certain level of capital, if you've only got a certain level of capital and you want that to increase, you have to invest. You have no other option. Keeping it in cash would kind of be worthless and there would be simply no point. I mean, I realize I'm oversimplifying it, but that's got to be the main point. The question is, do you invest or not?
Yeah, I think that is the main point. You remind me of a quote by the famous Peter Lynch, arguably, the best and most famous investor of the 20th century. People, today will maybe say I should include Warren Buffett and a few others in that, and that would be valid. But certainly, if we had this conversation 30 years ago, Peter Lynch's name would have been right up there, given his track record, and we can go into that if we have time. But he has a famous quote where he said that more money has been made in waiting for a stock market crash. Let me rephrase that. More money has been lost in waiting for a stock market crash than in those crashes themselves. And what he meant by that is people sitting on the sidelines, not investing in the equity market because the opportunity cost attached to that, the profits foregone by not investing in equities, ultimately is a lot more expensive than being exposed to the market and moving through the corrections as they come along.
Dion Groos, thank you very much indeed. Really do appreciate the time. The Chief Investment Officer at Credo, Dr. Musa Malwandla, is the Co-Chief Investment Officer at Differential Capital. I hope you found that did explain some of what we're seeing in a clearer way. So much is happening, all of course at the same time, that there are very many different elements that we have to go through. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight on Investment School.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
Well, in the US, markets turning positive after all of that. The Dow Jones is up 0.28%. The Nasdaq is up 0.75%. The S&P 500 up nearly 0.5% at the moment. Plenty to come. Rutindo Windingwi will move from the Money Show to Aubrey's show just for tonight. He'll be back with us next week. He'll be with Aubrey this evening. There'll be plenty more, of course, coming from Aubrey and a lot more news coming through. The commissions of inquiry are getting more and more interesting and a lot more mud being thrown in lots of different directions. There'll, of course, be a lot more conversations about that on this radio station. I'll see you tomorrow. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Mikey Molapo. Acting Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba has denied receiving any money to grant bail to alleged crime kingpin Katiso Molefe. The release of Molefe on bail was discussed at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry this week, with one of the investigating officers alleging that Molefe paid 2.5 million. Crime boss was granted 100,000 rand bail in June in the Pretoria High Court